Bill Maher as he hits 500 episodes, the real-time host can't talk about Trump much longer. Isn't sure what he'll do if is re-elected president next year. I feel exhausted by this man and by working so hard every week to try to find some new angle, Maher told Variety of his frustration over how much Trump now consumes his show You and his life. The prospect of another. Maher has hosted his Emmy-nominated weekly series Real Time since 2003, and the show, now in its 17th season, celebrates its 500th episode this Friday, June 21st. Born less than a year right now, that means most of the conversation revolves around Trump, You, and whether the Democrats will be able to organize enough of a message and a strategy to take him on next November. As he prepared to host his 500th Real Time, Maher spoke to Variety about the evolution of him and the show, as well as how he often angers liberal audiences as much as he does conservatives, and why he wears that as a badge of honor. He also addressed the host has often courted controversy, You, including a 2017 episode that got him into some hot water for referencing a racial slur, You, but he also notes that controversy is part of the brand. If it ends with me get a transcript of that interview, edited for length and clarity, follows. Anniversaries can be arbitrary, but what does 500 episodes of Real Time mean to you and the show? It's my life just going way too quickly. I feel like Real Time evolved into much more sophisticated conversations than you had on Politically Incorrect. How would you say it is an evolution? When you think about in my 20s, my goal was don't fail, don't be one of the comedians who is not going to get a career out of this because you'll be miserable through your whole life. You're always growing. And then when I moved to this show, it was a whole different thing. It was less celebrity. On last week's episode, You and George Will both lamented that there just aren't many open minds anymore. I think the frustration for me is more the studio audience than the people on the panel. The audience is more. What is it like for you when you encounter conservative audiences? I don't. I never do. Do you wish you had more conservatives in your audience? I do face liberal audiences who, when I go outside those groupthink boundaries, there is groaning and booing sometimes, and I don't care. That's my brand. When I first went on TV, they said, you can't even host a show if you give your political opinions, because that was the template that talk show hosts had always gone by. That was Johnny Carson. You had a bit, recently, where you said that the Democrats, they need a coach. Comedians have some of the things I've said just this year, or the last few years, they have picked up on. For example, when I first went on the air, I was always talking about things like, pot should be legal. Especially when you often say you wish you didn't have to constantly talk about Trump, but he takes up all the oxygen these days. How difficult is it? It's the question that's on my mind every week doing this show. I think I have a bond, but on the other hand, you can't watch it all the time or else you go crazy. The more you see what would happen? Obviously, I am against it for all the right reasons, as far as what's good for this country. But, there's so many things about Trump, and yet we've exhausted all of them. Most politicians, I feel exhausted by this man and by working so hard every week to try to find some new angle. The prospect of you mentioned that you get in trouble with liberal audiences when you take on the social justice warrior issues and how Democrats manage to shoot themselves in the foot. But you seem to I wear it as a badge of honor, and I feel very vindicated because, in the last 6 months, there have been 2 long studies/articles, one in the Atlantic, one in the New York Times, that found out that the vast majority, not only of people but of liberals, don't like this bullshit. They don't think it's good, it's insincere. Most of the stuff it's also lazy. I think I wanted to ask you about Republic. Katie Porter's I would say there's an example of me, a liberal, just differing by degrees with the groupthink and not acceptable among the liberals. I am always happy when the Democrats have a witty, personable new star, and she is. All I can tell you, you have new bosses with Warner Media, at NT. Has anything changed? It's all very new. I have no idea, and HBO's model has always been, if they like you and believe in you, they leave you alone, and that's why HBO has always turned out such amazing programming and got the best people to come on board. But it's always been I am assuming they're going to probably want more content. I am hoping that, given what happened at ABC and how politically correct was cancelled, do you ever worry that you could say one thing one night on the show and that could potentially change everything? I can't think about it, because if I think about it, I'll never do the show that I want to do. It's completely, and if it ends with me getting cancelled or fired, I've been through that before. There's something great. Any standout moments from the 500 episodes that come to mind? I would say what I did on my 60th birthday. I don't usually, I treat the audience as if they are my real friend that never got married and never had kids, and I said, this is the relationship of my life, me and the audience. Do this one thing for related video. Bill Maher is sick of Trump winning, calls Republican base a cult provided by Yahoo.
Raindrops, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.